The girl ran away from the orphanage to sing at a restaurant and raise money for her grandmother's surgery. And just as she grabbed the microphone in her hands, in a small orphanage in the heart of Texas, Emily, a young girl with an enchanting voice, dreams of saving her sick grandmother. Defying the rules, she finds hope on the stage of a bar, but her secrets don't stay hidden for long. Discover how Emily faces challenges and uncovers mysteries that could change everything. A story of love, hope, and family secrets. In the small town of Fairview, located in the heart of Texas, a young girl named Emily lived a quiet routine at the Saint and Orphanage. At 15, her life was marked by loneliness, but also by a silent hope she kept in her heart. Emily, a black girl with bright eyes and a charming voice, spent her days doing chores around the orphanage and dreaming of a better future. Emily's only family was her grandmother, whom she hadn't seen in months since being taken to the orphanage. Her grandmother, a strong and loving woman, had always been her biggest supporter. However, a severe illness had left her bedridden, needing an expensive surgery that the healthcare system wouldn't cover. The news reached Emily through an emotional letter from a family friend, and since then, the girl couldn't think of anything else but finding a way to save her grandmother. Nights at the orphanage were long and silent, but Emily's mind was always active, planning and dreaming. One of those nights, while looking out the small window of her room, she had a bold idea. There was an old bar in town, known for giving opportunities to aspiring musicians. Emily knew her voice was special and believed she could raise the necessary money if she could sing there. With the plan firmly rooted in her mind, Emily began preparing for her escape. She secretly saved some money and memorized the route to the bar. The following nights were filled with anxiety and anticipation as she waited for the right moment to flee. Finally, on a moonless night, Emily put her plan into action. Dressed in her best outfit, though still quite simple, she waited until everyone at the orphanage was asleep. Silently, she opened the window and carefully climbed down, stepping lightly on the grass to avoid making noise. Her heart raced as she ran through the dark streets, feeling a mix of freedom and fear in the air. When she arrived at the bar, the Rusty Note, she was met with curious and uninterested looks. The place was rustic and dimly lit, with a heavy atmosphere of smoke and muffled conversations. Emily approached the counter, trying to appear confident. The bar owner, a burly man with a graying beard, looked at her suspiciously. "What do you want here, girl?" he asked in a rough voice. Emily took a deep breath and replied firmly, "I want to sing. I know I can raise money if you give me a chance. Please, let me try." The man observed her for a moment, intrigued by the determination in her voice. "All right, girl. You have one chance. If you're not good, you're out." Emily climbed onto the small makeshift stage, feeling a growing nervousness. The microphone in her hands felt heavy, but she closed her eyes and began to sing. Her voice, sweet and powerful, filled the room, silencing the conversations and drawing everyone's attention. Emily sang with all the emotion she had in her heart, thinking of her grandmother and how much she meant to her. When the last note echoed through the bar, there was a moment of silence before applause erupted. Emily opened her eyes, surprised and emotional. The bar owner approached her, a rare smile on his face. "You're good, kid. You'll sing here 2 nights a week. But there's one condition. I'll take you back to the orphanage after each performance." "I don't want any trouble." Emily agreed, feeling a new hope bloom in her heart. She had a chance and she wouldn't waste it. From that moment on, Emily's life would change in ways she could never have imagined as she fought to save her grandmother and uncovered secrets that would change everything. Following weeks were intense for Emily. She performed regularly at the Rusty Note, and more people started coming to the bar to hear her sing. Her voice not only enchanted but also attracted customers, increasing the bar's revenue. The bar owner, John, began to treat her with more respect, seeing the positive impact she had on the business. However, Emily's success didn't go unnoticed by the other residents of the orphanage, especially a girl named Clara, who had always been envious of Emily. Clara, a girl with a difficult and jealous personality, began to suspect Emily's nighttime outings and decided to follow her one night. When she discovered the secret, she went straight to the orphanage's stern headmistress, Mrs. Thompson. The news that Emily was sneaking out at night to sing at a bar caused an uproar. Mrs. Thompson, although strict, was a fair woman and decided to confront Emily before making any decisions. "Emily, I need to talk to you," Mrs. Thompson said firmly, calling her into her office. Emily entered, her heart pounding. She knew her escape had been discovered and now feared the consequences. "I know you've been sneaking out at night. Can you explain why?" Mrs. Thompson asked, looking her directly in the eyes. Emily felt tears of frustration and despair start to form. "My grandmother is sick, Mrs. Thompson. She needs surgery and I didn't know what to do. I thought if I sang at the bar, I could raise the money to help her." Mrs. Thompson was silent for a moment, processing Emily's words. Despite her rigidity, there was compassion in her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me earlier, Emily? We could have found a solution together. I didn't know if I could trust you. I was afraid of being punished, of not being able to help my grandmother," Emily confessed, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. Mrs. Thompson sighed, feeling the pain and determination in Emily's voice. "Well, I can't allow you to keep sneaking out, but I'll help you find a way to keep singing safely." Emily looked at her, surprised. "Really? You'd help me?" "Yes, Emily. Your grandmother needs help, and you've shown a lot of courage and determination. We'll work together on this," Mrs. Thompson said with a slight smile. Meanwhile, at the Rusty Note, a night that began like any other took an unexpected turn. During one of her performances, Emily noticed a woman in the audience watching her intently. There was something familiar in her eyes, something that made Emily's heart beat faster. After the show, the woman approached Emily, visibly emotional. "You remind me so much of someone I knew many years ago. Her name was Grace. Do you know her?" Before Emily could answer, the woman fainted, collapsing to the floor. The bar went into an uproar, and John, the owner, rushed to help. "Call an ambulance," John shouted, holding the woman in his arms. He looked at Emily, who was in shock. "Are you okay, kid?" Emily nodded, though her heart was racing. Who was this woman, and why did she mention her grandmother's name? The ambulance arrived quickly and took the woman to the hospital. Concerned about Emily's emotional state, John decided to talk to her after the bar closed. "Sit here, Emily," he said, pulling up a chair. "Who was that woman?" "I don't know. She mentioned my grandmother's name, Grace. But I've never seen her before," Emily replied, still trying to process what had happened. John sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "Look, I'll drive you back to the orphanage. But first, I need to know if you're okay to continue with this. This place can be tough, and you already have a lot to deal with." Emily looked at him with renewed determination in her eyes. "Yes, I want to continue. I need to raise the money for my grandmother's surgery. And I'll find out who that woman was and what she knows about my family." John smiled, admiring Emily's willpower. "Then let's keep going. But you're not alone in this. I'll help you." That night, as Emily was driven back to the orphanage, she felt a mix of emotions. The challenge was great, but her determination was greater. She knew she was on the right path, and nothing would stop her from saving her grandmother and discovering the truth about her family. The return to the orphanage that night was different. Mrs. Thompson was waiting for Emily at the entrance, and upon seeing her, gave a slight nod, indicating they had reached a new understanding. Emily felt a weight lifted from her shoulders, knowing she now had someone on her side. The next day, Mrs. Thompson arranged a meeting with John to discuss Emily's future. They decided that Emily would continue singing, but now in a safer venue, the upscale restaurant John owned in the city. He promised to drive her to and from the orphanage after each performance, ensuring her safety. The news brought new hope to Emily. The restaurant, called Harmony, was frequented by a more sophisticated clientele and could provide better opportunities to raise the money needed for her grandmother's surgery. Additionally, Singing in a more refined environment was an important step for her career and dreams. On her first night at Harmony, Emily was nervous but also excited. The atmosphere was completely different from the Rusty Note. The lights were soft, the space was elegant, and the audience eagerly awaited a night of good music. John introduced her to the restaurant manager, a kind man named Peter, who welcomed her warmly. "It's a pleasure to have you here, Emily. I've heard you have an amazing voice. Let's make tonight special," Peter said, smiling. Emily smiled back, feeling welcomed. She stepped onto the stage and took a deep breath before starting to sing. Her voice, full of emotion and power, filled the room, capturing the attention of everyone present. The notes flowed with a naturalness that made hearts beat in time with the music. As she sang, Emily watched the audience's reactions. She saw smiles, eyes closed in appreciation, and even a few discreet tears. She knew she was touching people in a deep way, and this filled her with a sense of accomplishment and renewed hope. After the show, Peter approached her, impressed. "You were fantastic, Emily. We need to do this more often. I'd like to hire you to sing here 2 nights a week." Emily couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Really? That would be amazing. Thank you, Peter. I'm the one who should thank you. Let's work together to make your performances even better," he replied, excited. Life at the orphanage also began to change for Emily. The headmistress, Mrs. Thompson, became an important ally. She promised to help the girl keep her job secret and achieve her dream, ensuring that no other child or adult knew about Emily's escapades. With the support of John and Mrs. Thompson, Emily began to balance her life between her responsibilities at the orphanage and her performances at the restaurant. Every night at Harmony, she felt she was getting closer to reaching her goal, and the curiosity about the woman who fainted at the bar didn't leave her. Who was she, and how did she know her grandmother? John and Mrs. Thompson were also intrigued. They decided to investigate more about the mysterious woman. They discovered that her name was Margaret, and that she was hospitalized at the local hospital. Mrs. Thompson, showing her more humane and compassionate side, went to visit her. "Hello, Margaret. My name is Helen Thompson. I'm the headmistress of St. Anne's Orphanage. I'm here to learn more about how you know Emily and her grandmother, Grace," she said, with an encouraging smile. Margaret looked at her, surprised and relieved at the same time. "Grace. I knew Grace many years ago. She was a great friend of mine. When I saw Emily, I thought I was seeing a ghost. The resemblance is incredible. I understand. And do you know anything that could help us understand more about Emily's and her grandmother's past?" Mrs. Thompson asked, curious. Margaret nodded, visibly emotional. "Yes, there's much you need to know. But please bring Emily here. I have something important to tell her." The anticipation was building. Emily's curiosity and the mystery surrounding Margaret were about to reveal secrets that could change everything. With renewed hope and the support of her new friends, Emily was about to discover a truth that would transform her life in unexpected ways. Emily was called into Mrs. Thompson's office. She didn't know what to expect. Her mind was full of questions about the woman who had fainted at the bar and what she might reveal about her grandmother. As she entered the office, she saw Margaret sitting, still pale, but with a determined expression on her face. "Emily, this is Margaret. She has something important to tell you about your grandmother," Mrs. Thompson said, encouraging her to sit. Emily sat down, her heart racing. "What do you know about my grandmother?" Margaret smiled softly. "Your grandmother, Grace, was an amazing woman. We met when we were young, and she always spoke about you with such love. Grace and I went through many things together, and she was always a loyal friend." Emily listened intently, feeling a connection with Margaret that she had never felt with anyone outside her grandmother. "There's something you need to know, Emily. Your grandmother had a secret, something she never revealed to you because she wanted to protect you," Margaret continued, looking directly into Emily's eyes. "You have a family here in town. Your grandfather, the owner of the restaurant where you sing, is actually your mother's father." Emily was stunned, feeling a whirlwind of emotions. "What? My grandfather is Peter. Margaret nodded. Yes, he never knew about you. Your mother ran away when she was young and never came back. When I heard you sing, I knew I had to tell the truth. You deserve to know where you come from. Emily felt tears streaming down her face. The surprise and relief mixed in her heart. Finally, she had answers, a connection to a family she never knew existed. Mrs. Thompson moved, held Emily's hand. We need to tell Peter, Mrs. Thompson said, determined. He deserves to know the truth as much as you do. That night, Emily, Mrs. Thompson, and Margaret went to the Harmony restaurant to meet Peter. The restaurant was closed to the public, but Peter greeted them with a worried look. What's going on? He asked, seeing the serious expressions on the women's faces. Emily took a deep breath, gathering courage. Peter, I found out something important. Something you need to know. Peter looked at her, confused. What is it, Emily? I'm your granddaughter, she said, the words coming out in a whisper but full of emotion. My mother was your daughter. Peter stood still, trying to process the information. His eyes filled with tears as the truth finally became clear. He approached Emily and hugged her tightly, feeling the love and gratitude overflow. My granddaughter, I can't believe it. I finally found you, he said, his voice choked with emotion. Margaret watched the scene with tears in her eyes, feeling a deep gratitude for reuniting Emily with her family. Mrs. Thompson, moved, held Margaret's hand, sharing the moment of joy. We'll help your grandmother, Emily. We'll do whatever it takes for her surgery, Peter promised with determination. Emily felt a wave of relief and love wash over her heart. For the first time in a long time, she felt she had a family, people who cared about her and were willing to help. From that moment on, Emily's life changed irreversibly. With the support of Peter and Margaret, she managed to raise the money needed for her grandmother's surgery. The procedure was a success, and her grandmother began to recover, bringing more happiness and hope to Emily's life. The reunion with her family brought new meaning to her life. She continued to sing at Harmony, not just to raise money, but also to celebrate the new phase of her life, full of love and gratitude. The following days were filled with a mix of relief and gratitude for Emily. Her grandmother was recovering well, and the news that she had a family brought a new light to her eyes. Emily continued to sing at Harmony, and each performance was a celebration of her new life. Peter, now aware of his connection with Emily, treated her with even more affection and pride. He made sure to be present at all her performances, always applauding and encouraging her. The restaurant also thrived, attracting more customers who came to hear the talented young singer. At the orphanage, Mrs. Thompson kept her promise to support Emily. She ensured that no one discovered Emily's secret, helping her balance her responsibilities and her dream. The relationship between them strengthened, with Emily seeing Mrs. Thompson as a maternal figure. Margaret, on the other hand, became a constant presence in Emily's life. She shared stories about Grace, bringing memories and laughter that made Emily feel even more connected to her grandmother. The friendship between them blossomed, with Margaret playing a crucial role in Emily's new life. One night, after one of her performances at Harmony, Peter called Emily for a conversation in the restaurant's office. Emily, I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened. About you, your mother, and the time we've lost. I want to make it up to you. I'd like you to come live with me if you want, of course, Peter said with a warm smile. Emily felt tears of joy in her eyes. I'd love to, Peter. Thank you for everything. The reunion with her family brought a new stability to Emily. She moved into Peter's house, where she was welcomed with open arms. The house, once quiet and empty, was now filled with laughter and music. Peter and Emily shared precious moments, creating memories that could never be erased. Margaret, also an important figure, became a regular visitor at Peter's house, further strengthening the family bonds. Emily's life finally felt complete, with love and support from all sides. One day, while Emily was at the hospital visiting her grandmother, she encountered the woman who had fainted at the bar again. This time, Margaret was stronger and smiling. "How is your grandmother, Emily?" Margaret asked, smiling. "She's recovering well, thanks to you and Peter." "I don't know how to thank you enough for everything," Emily replied, holding Margaret's hand. "You don't need to thank me, dear. Just seeing you happy and your grandmother recovering is enough for me," Margaret said, moved. The relationship between them continued to flourish, and Margaret revealed more secrets about Grace's past and the family. Each new piece of information brought more understanding and connection for Emily, who finally felt she belonged somewhere. One night, during a special performance at Harmony, where all her friends and family were present, Emily decided to dedicate a song to her grandmother and the new family she had found. The song was a soft ballad, full of emotion and gratitude. "This song is for my grandmother, who has always been my inspiration, and for my new family, who welcomed me with so much love. Thank you for being here and for everything you've done for me," Emily said before starting to sing. Tears streamed down many faces in the audience, including Peter's and Margaret's. The performance was a success, and Emily received a standing ovation, feeling love and gratitude fill her heart. That night, as Emily was driven back to the orphanage by Peter, they talked about the future. "Emily, I know there's still so much we want to do. I want you to know that I'll always be here for you, no matter what happens," Peter said, holding her hand. Emily smiled, feeling safer and more loved than ever. "Thank you, Peter. I'll always be here for you too. We're a family now, and nothing can change that." With the support and love of her new family, Emily knew she was ready to face any challenge that came her way. Life had transformed in ways she could never have imagined, and she was ready to embrace every new moment with gratitude and hope. The months passed quickly, and Emily's life took a completely new direction. With her grandmother recovered and by her side, Emily continued to thrive, both on stage and off. The Harmony restaurant became not just a venue for good music lovers, but also a community hub that grew around Emily's talent and story. Peter and Margaret grew even closer, discovering a new happiness together. Peter, who had spent so many years unaware of his granddaughter's existence, now found joy in every moment shared with her. Margaret, who had reconnected with a friend and discovered a new family, felt more complete than ever. One day, Peter gathered everyone at his house for a special dinner. The table was full of laughter, lively conversations, and the soft sound of the music Emily always brought with her. After dinner, Peter stood up and made an announcement that surprised everyone. "I have something important to say. Margaret and I have decided to get married. We want everyone to know how grateful we are to have found a new family and want to share our happiness with you," he said, holding Margaret's hand. Emily, emotional, ran to hug them. "I'm so happy for you. You deserve all the happiness in the world." Peter and Margaret's wedding was a celebration full of love and joy. Emily sang for them, her voice echoing as a blessing for the new couple and the new life they were building together. The event marked the beginning of a new chapter, not just for Peter and Margaret, but for the entire family. Over time, Emily became a beloved figure in the community. Her talent and story inspired many, and she dedicated herself to helping other young people with similar dreams. She organized events at the orphanage and at Harmony, using her music to raise funds and provide opportunities for other children. Life at the orphanage also improved. Mrs. Thompson, inspired by Emily's determination and success, worked to create a more welcoming environment full of opportunities for all the children. Emily, whenever she could, visited the orphanage to share her story and sing for the children, filling them with hope and inspiration. Emily also continued to explore her roots and the history of her family. With Margaret's help, she discovered more about her mother and what led her to run away. These discoveries helped her better understand her own identity and strengthen her bonds with her new family. At 18, Emily was accepted into a prestigious music school where she could further hone her talent. Peter and Margaret supported her every step of the way, proud of everything she had achieved and excited for the bright future that awaited her. On her last night at Harmony before leaving for school, Emily gave a special performance, dedicated to all those who had helped her along the way. She sang a song she composed, reflecting on her journey and expressing her gratitude. "This song is for my grandmother, Peter, Margaret, Mrs. Thompson, and all of you who have been a part of my life. Thank you for believing in me and for helping me achieve my dreams. I'll never forget what you've done for me, Emily said, her voice choked with emotion. The performance was moving, and the audience gave her a standing ovation, many with tears in their eyes. Emily felt a deep peace and contentment, knowing she was ready for the next phase of her life. As she left the stage, she was embraced by her grandmother, Peter, and Margaret, who were visibly emotional and proud. "We are so proud of you, Emily. Go and shine, just as you've always done here," Peter said, holding her hands. Emily smiled, feeling surrounded by the love and support of her family. "Thank you, Peter. I'll carry all of you in my heart wherever I go." With one last look at Harmony, the place where her life changed forever, Emily stepped forward to face the future with optimism and determination. She knew that, no matter where life took her, she would always have a family and a community that loved and believed in her. And so, with renewed hope and a heart full of gratitude, Emily was ready to embrace every new challenge and opportunity, knowing that her family's love and support would always be with her.